When you're building an application, there are 5 essential APIs that you need in almost every application for it to be more functional and usable by every other person that want to use that application. I'm going to give you those 5 APIs that you need and a bonus API at the end. But let's start with the first one. Whenever you're building an application, you need a way for you to authenticate your users. And for you to authenticate your users, you need authentication APIs because you don't want just any other user to access your application. You need a good way to manage any users that come into your application. To help you in this, there's a number of APIs that you can use. For example, you can use OAuth APIs. You can use OAuth. These are major ones that everyone else uses. There are many other APIs that you can use. This include things such as OpenID. There are many of these. The point is that you need authentication and identity APIs. These are very important. These are the first one that you need. Now, once you have your authentication and identity API set up, you also need a second type of API. This second type of API is what we refer to as data and storage APIs. Because when you build an application, you need a way to store the user information that you get, you need a database, everything. There are APIs that you need for these kinds of storage as well. There's a number of them. But if you're comfortable with working with CRUD over HTTP, then in this case, you're already set up for any application that you're trying to build for authentication. But these are the kinds of other APIs that you need, data and storage APIs. Now, there's a third type of API that you also need for your application, and that is payment and billing APIs. So I'll just write here payment and billing APIs. For payment and billing APIs, because when you build an application, for the most part, you'll always need a way to make money out of that application that you're building. You need to be able to get payment from your users. You need to record all this payment. You need to do any sort of invoicing that you need to do. So there are many other providers of this payment and billing APIs that you can use. So I'd like you to think of Stripe is a famous one. I'd like you to think of something like Paystack. Paystack offers a number of these here. Think of PayPal. There are many of these payment and billing APIs that are always provided for you to use. You need to understand at least one of this in depth for you to implement into your application. The fourth type of API that you need apart from all these are what we refer to as communication APIs. So when you talk about communication APIs, when you build an application, you need a way for you to communicate with your users. You need to set up emails for this. You need to set up maybe SMS. You need to set up WhatsApp, all this. So for emails, we have something like SendGrid. Then for SMS and WhatsApp, you can even use Twilio has a number of APIs that you can use for this. But you need communication APIs for your users so that you can be able to tell them what is going on and give them updates. The fifth type of API is a file handling API. Let's talk about file handling. When you build an application, at one point you're going to handle files. An example I mentioned is like invoicing. You might have files to handle for that. But a very basic one is even something as simple as profile images that are going to be needed in your application. You need a way to handle all of this. Now, I'm going to give you the sixth bonus API that I mentioned earlier on. This sixth API is an AI, or let's say just LLM.